I read 15 books in September and we're gonna talk about them in this video. Hello, my name is Sara and I hope you're gonna enjoy this video. In this video, as I've already mentioned, we're gonna be going through the books that I read in September, a reading wrap up for the month of September. I read 15 books, which is an accomplishment for me. Like last month, 9 books. This month, 15. It's already October, so the month of September is over. So it was high time to do this. Hope you're excited. Buckle up because we're getting into it. The first book I actually finished the 1st of September, and it was Next of Kin by Hannah Bonham Young. This is the author that wrote Out on a Limb, which is a very, very booktok, booktube famous book. And I read Out on a Limb. I really liked that. I gave it 4 stars. And this one, I liked a little bit less. I ended up giving it a 3.25. The plot of this book is basically, it's about these two people, this woman, I forgot her name, Chloe. So Chloe, she wants to adopt her baby sister because her mom can't raise her baby sister. So she wants to raise her baby sister. But it isn't possible with the funds that she has. She doesn't have enough money, but she does have an apartment. And that's where this other guy comes in. He has the funds, but he doesn't have the apartment. So they start living together and he wants to adopt his brother, his 15-year-old brother. In that way, they both benefit from the situation that they're in. She gets his money, like, not like gold digger like, but she gets his money. He lives in her apartment so they can both adopt their siblings. The insta love. They went from 0 to 100 in the span of 5 seconds. I was just chilling, reading my book, and then suddenly, boom, insta love. Not even a little, a lot. It had been like halfway, but if you read this book, you will know what I'm talking about. But for the rest, it was a really fun, enjoyable read. Again, 3.25, really enjoyed it, but it wasn't anything special to me. When the Moon Hatched by Sara A. Parker. You can't really see it, but this is, wait. This is the book. So I feel a little bit conflicted. I ended up giving it a 3.75 with a lot of question marks because I seriously didn't know, and I still don't know what I should feel about this book. I cannot tell you a clear plot of this book because I don't think there is any. I just don't know how to feel. It was a fun, enjoyable time, but the start of this was so hard to get through. Like the first 80 pages, I was really close to DNFing this book, but I didn't end up doing that. I also don't remember much of it, but it's this fantasy world. It's a lot of world building. There are a lot of magical creatures, which I really did enjoy. Again, I don't know what the plot is. I don't think there is a solid plot, but it was a fun, enjoyable time. I just don't know. Now we're moving into some dark romance. Kill Switch by Penelope Douglas. This is the 3rd book in the Devil's Night series. I obviously already read book 1 and 2, and now I've also read Kill Switch. I think out of the 3, I enjoyed this one the least. That was such a surprise because I heard such positive things about this book specifically. I heard negative things about the 1st book and the 2nd book, but not about this book. I only heard positives, but I just didn't have the same experience. I don't know what I rated it. I rated it to 3.75, so it wasn't bad, but I just found this kind of bland. Not a lot happened, and Damon, the main character in this, he had some character development, but I feel like the character development happened out of nowhere, and it was just so sudden and not believable at all for me. It is fiction, so can we really fault it for it? But I just don't enjoy that much. I want character development to gradually come into the book. I could go on and on about this book, but it was a fun time. It's about Damon and Winter, and Damon and Winter have known each other for a few years, I think, but they've become estranged. Damon lives in Winter's home because he's married to her sister, but it's purely business arrangement. But the reason that Damon lives in that house is because Winter is there and he wants to get revenge on Winter. So that was this book. It was an enjoyable time, and I can definitely see why people like this the most, but I just didn't. Still Beating by Jennifer Hartman. This was a complete switch up from the other dark romances that I've ever read, honestly. This is a dark romance in the sense that these two characters go through some tough shit together, and not in the sense that these characters are morally gray or they're twisted. Because these characters were twisted, but from the experience that they experienced. So definitely, especially for this book. For all of the books, but especially for this one, check your trigger warning. I ended up rating this a 3.5 because the story felt like a 4-star, but the characters I didn't like as much. I just thought a 3.5 was a solid rating for this. Sinners Anonymous by Sam Sketcher. This was a bit of a disappointing read. I rated this 3 stars, just a rounded up 3-star. I had so much trouble getting through this book, like not even funny. So much trouble. It was a fun time, and I can definitely see why people like this, but it was just not for me. And I've had this with the most of the mafia romances that I've read, because it's a mafia romance. It's about this hotline that this woman calls, and she is the fiance of this old man, and turns out the hotline that she calls to confess her sins is owned by her crush and also the nephew of this old dude. It sounded so interesting, but the execution of it for me wasn't fun. I thought the writing style wasn't easy to get through. It took me so long to read in comparison to other books, and I just kept putting off reading this book because of that. I do want to read the next book because it did leave an open ending, so I do want to read the next book. Not anytime soon. Okay, I read a really exciting book because it was an arc. Last month in August, I also had an arc to review, and now I have another one by Melanie Harlow, Slapshot Surprise. This was such a good book. Oh my god. I was surprised. No, I was not surprised, because I know that I like Melanie Harlow. This was so much better than the previous books in the series, and I don't know what changed, but the writing style evolved so much. I can definitely see that Melanie Harlow progressed in her writing style even after all of these years of writing for her. Go read this book right now. It's the 5th and final book in this series, the Cherry Tree Harbor series. I read the 1st and 2nd book, then I applied for this arc, and I needed to get it. And then I got it, so I was really happy. 4 stars. I loved the male main character. Loved him. In the beginning, I was apprehensive that I was not gonna like him and that he wasn't gonna be my favorite. But that changed completely, because his love language is gift giving. Money can't buy happiness, but gifts sure can. I love this. It was a really fun time. Definitely recommend this book. Definitely recommend this series. This is also a surprise pregnancy, but don't let that deter you from starting this book, because it was a surprise pregnancy done so well. My guilty pleasure is surprise pregnancy. I know a lot of people hate it, but I personally love surprise pregnancy. So I cannot really say if you will enjoy this if you don't like surprise pregnancy, but I enjoy it, and I thought it was done really well. Another ebook, 3 Hard Lessons by Nikki Sloan. This is the 2nd book in this Blindfold Club series. It was fine. It was a 3-star, I think. I rated the previous book in the series a 3.25. This was a little bit less because, again, insta love. And some of the things that the guy character did at the end, I was like, no. It was still a 3-star read. It's basically about the sex club. It's about the sex club, the Blindfold Club, and this girl, Peyton, I think, meets this guy. I don't remember his name for the life of me. They go on this adventure together, basically, because they feel this connection after they met in this sex club. I will not tell you more than that, because I feel like that is enough for you to want to read this book or not want to read this book. But I thought it was an enjoyable time, very easy to get through. These are also very short reads. It was less than 300 pages. I just don't think much of these books, they are just palate cleansers, you know? The Wrong Mr. Right by Stephanie Archer. This is the 2nd book in the Queen's Cove series. Stephanie Archer also wrote Behind the Net and The Fake Out. And now recently The Wingman came out, and I'm so excited to read that. I haven't yet, but I'm going to. Mark my words, I'm going to soon. But now we're talking about this book. This is about Wyatt and Hannah. And Hannah wants to be a hot girl, as she describes it. I think that term is very cringe, so I don't like to use it, but that's how she describes it, so we're gonna call it that. She wants to be a hot girl, and she knows that Wyatt dates hot girls and that he is carefree. Hannah wants to learn how to be that kind of girl. She asks Wyatt to do that, and she blackmails him into doing that, but he doesn't think the blackmail is solid. But he's still like, I'll amuse her, I'm gonna learn her how to be a hot girl. And that's basically the premise of the story. Really enjoyed this book. It was such a fun time. 4 stars. I did enjoy this more than the 1st book. I gave the 1st book a 3.75. This one a 4. The Raven Boys by Maggie. I'm not gonna try to pronounce her name again, because I've done that in my 24-hour reading vlog, and I'm not gonna do it again. Maggie something. This was an enjoyable read, but the start was rough. I've had this with a few of my books. I also had this with When the Moon Hatched. The first 60 pages were so rough to get through. I, again, seriously considered DNFing it. I didn't dislike it. I hated it. Like, it was that bad. But something changed. I changed. The book changed. The writing style changed. It was dense, but I moved past that, I think. And then I enjoyed this book. I gave this a 3.5. Ended up on a 3.5. I am definitely interested in reading the second book in the series, and maybe even the third if I enjoy the second book. This start was just really tough. And I, again, seriously considered DNFing this, but I didn't end up because it did end up being a really fun book, and I really enjoyed it. And I think this book's one of the books that stuck with me the most in this whole month of reading. The Friend Zone by Abby Jimenez. I read the whole Part of Your World series and loved that. Part of Your World was a 4. Yours truly, I think, also a 4. And then Just for the Summer was a 4.25. Really, really loved that series. And I was like, need to read this. And I've had this on my TBR for more than a year. I think I have had this since April of 2023. Way too long. I needed to read it, so I did. And I am a little disappointed. It was a 3.25. The start of this book, I have the most trouble with starts of books. Apparently, something happened, and it was not cheating, but it felt like emotional cheating to me, and I didn't enjoy that. To be fair, they did not physically cheat, but it still felt like emotional cheating, and I didn't enjoy that. Then I started enjoying it, but some things happened that were just very cringe, very unrealistic, and it was just, I don't want to say confusing, but it was just a little weird. I like these characters. It's about Kristen and Josh, and I like Josh, but towards Kristen, towards the end, I kind of felt a little bit of loathing to her, because the thing that she did, I just didn't like that. Actions that she took, didn't like that. This book does deal with some heavy subjects like infertility. I will not tell you the other one because I feel like that's a spoiler. Check your trigger warnings if you're triggered by anything, because there may be a trigger for you in this. So that was this book. Next one is Forget Me Not by Julie Soto. This is about a florist and a wedding planner, and it was so cute. I flew through this book. I read 100 pages in an hour, and I was like, this was me. Done. Finished. It's a second chance romance, and second chance romances are a hit or miss for me, and this was somewhere in between. For the most part, it was a hit, but the last few pages went by too quickly for me. The development between these characters, they obviously had a relationship previously a few years back. Now that they got together again, it felt too sudden. So a 4-star, but I do have some things obviously negative to say about this book. The Doll's House by MJ Arledge. This was so fun. Again, flew through this book. This is a thriller, and this is the third book in the series. I would highly, highly, highly recommend to read the other books in the series before you read this one. This is such an interesting story because it's about this girl, and she gets discovered. She's dead. She gets discovered by this family. We're following this other POV where this girl gets kidnapped, and she lives in this underground thing. So we're following multiple POVs. We're following the point of view of the killer and the kidnapper. We're following the point of view in the first chapter, but that's only the first chapter, of the family that discovered the body. We're following the point of view of the detective on that case. We're following a different point of view of another detective. It's just a lot of point of views, but it's not confusing at all. It makes the story so much more interesting. I'm sorry, I don't know why I acted like that, but I do know because it's The Shadows Between Us. I reread this book for the 9th time. The last time that I read this book was in 2022. And so I wanted to reread it again to see if it still lived up to the 5-star that I gave it. It very much did. I loved it. I loved it back then and loved it now. I just feel such a connection towards these characters. I can definitely see where people wouldn't like this, but for me, this is my perfect book. Perfect book. So if you have any recommendations that are like this book, tell me right the fuck now because I need them. This is about Alessandra, and Alessandra, is the second daughter, second choice always. So she doesn't want to be that anymore. So she decides to take matters into her own hands. She's going to woo the king. She's going to marry him. And after she marries him, she's going to kill him and take his kingdom for herself. So she devises this whole plan to basically make the king notice her. And the king notices her. And she gets invited to his court. They start talking. And things start happening. And obviously she falls in love, and she's like, shit, I have to kill him now. Callias, that's the male love interest, that's the king. Holy shit, he is so hot. Like, some things that he does, questionable, But I moved past that because it's a fantasy world. And Callias, it's called The Shadows Between Us because Callias is cloaked in shadows. And when you touch Callias, he cannot call on those shadows again. And those shadows make him immortal. I cannot stop talking about this book because it's such a good book. And again, definitely can't see why people wouldn't like this. But for me, amazing. We've arrived at the last 2 books. So first one is Bloom by Delia S. Dawson. I won't talk too much about it because I think the reading vlog for this one will be up after I posted this video. It's a horror. It was interesting. I actually put this on my October TBR but ended up reading it in September. Oops! But it was a good book. I rated it 4 stars. Originally gave it 4.25 stars, but then 10 minutes later rated it a 4-star instead because I was high on the moment of reading this book. This plot twist, I expected it because of the blurb. Don't read the blurb because you will be spoiled. I knew right away what the plot twist was going to be because of this blurb. So don't read it. I would seriously recommend you to not read it. Just go into this blindly. It's short, it's fun, it's a good time. I Played with Barbarians by Ruby Dixon. I honestly don't know why I read this. Yeah, I do know because this video. I actually really enjoyed this book. Surprise of all surprises. Really enjoyed this book. Gave it 4 stars. But here's the thing. It's a 300-page book, right? It's not. It's 218 pages. At least a copy that I have. Bonus epilogue. This is a lot for a bonus epilogue. But apparently, there's a different story in this one as well. Like a little novella of these 2 characters' honeymoons. It annoyed me to no end. I have moved past it since then. But it's about this blue alien and this human. This human gets abducted by aliens. She gets dropped on this planet where this alien lives and this species live. They basically find each other and they have sex. Yeah, that's all I'm gonna tell you. Those were all of the books that I read in September. I'm actually very, very proud of the amount that I read because this is a lot for me especially. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you got any recommendation out of this, leave it down below and let me know what you think of it, or if you want to read it, let me know if you're gonna read it. And I hope to see you all next time.